Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Turns out Sony is indeed serious about the Sinister Six, having not just teased them in the debut trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but having officially announced late last night, breaking news, that they are making a standalone Sinister Six movie and a Venom movie, and they're moving full steam ahead on The Amazing Spider-Man 3, putting together that Spideyverse that they teased a few days ago or about a week or so ago. But now they've moved forward. They're really moving ahead. They're not just making grand statements and, oh, wouldn't this be nice, and teasing fanboys. They aim to deliver with their own Spideyverse, and they've put together their Spider-Man Brain Trust. Yes, while the other studios are entrusting their franchises and their cinematic universes to one individual, Joss Whedon at Marvel, David Goyer over at DC Warner Brothers, and Mark Miller, or Millar, depending on who you ask, heading things up at Fox. Although I think he's making the least amount of noise. He's going to have to step it up. Mark Miller is a huge PR machine for his own comics, if anybody who reads comics knows. But he is getting majorly trumped by the other groups, especially since his name's never in these things. When everyone was talking about X-Men Apocalypse, no one was like, thanks, Mark Miller. They were just like, thanks, Bryan Singer. So Mark Miller better work on that, or everyone's going to forget that that's what his official title is, head of the Fox Marvel Cinematic Universe, or whatever they call it. All right, but back over to Sony, who has a whole group of people, and basically it's just the people working on these three films, but there's apparently, comparing notes, which is good. It's good they're all working together. But it's a very interesting makeup of people, not only because of what they've done in the past, what they're currently working on, or what they're now not going to be working on. All right, so Amazing Spider-Man 3. That's moving forward with its original writers of the second one, Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman. They are, of course, famous for being the Star Trek reboot or alternate timeline duo with J.J. Abrams. They're doing very well. They're also going to be the team behind the Venom film, and they're working in that with Ed Solomon. So they're having three screenwriters on each. So the Amazing Spider-Man 3 is Orci, Kurtzman, and Jeff Pinkner. They all worked on 2, and so they're going to do 3. And also, interestingly, Mark Webb, they are eyeing him to direct. He is the unofficial other member of this Brain Trust. However, he's not locked down for The Amazing Spider-Man 3. As you might recall, there was a big question, with the studio from behind 500 Days of Summer saying, hey, we want him back, and Sony being like, come on, he's really, entrenched here in our franchise. Can we keep him for another movie? But apparently they couldn't talk them into a third film. So we will see. I think, Mark Webb will stay on. He has to. His name is perfect. And I think he's doing a very good job with these movies on the more serious side of things. All right, so you've got Orci and Kurtzman, and then Solomon doing the Venom movie. And Ed Solomon is the guy from the Men in Black films, and Kurtzman will direct Venom. Now, that's very interesting because that gig is what led to the announcement, obviously, a few days ago that Kurtzman is leaving Star Trek. Orci is staying on. They're bringing on some newbies over there. But you really have to feel for Paramount that they had this great reboot or alternate timeline, as I said, in 2009 with J.J. Abrams. Everyone loved it. Then they kind of faltered a little bit with the second one. I know some people really like it. It did respectably at the box office, but it didn't have the same kind of buzz or fan fervor. It was voted the worst Star Trek movie of all time by Star Trek fans. J.J. Abrams even recently admitted that he perhaps didn't do a very good job with the publicity of the film. And so basically, these guys kind of broke it and made a mistake. But because the first one did so well, other studios cherry-picked them off the project, and now Paramount's just kind of left holding the bag. But I guess Orci's still there, being like, guys, I didn't quit on you. And they're like, okay, don't break it the second time. Can you fix it? All right, so that's very interesting, kind of the trading of players. Okay, so then there's this Sinister Six movie. Who's on that? Drew Goddard, which is fascinating. Now, of course, this is the Cabin in the Woods guy, and when you think about that, he might be very good at a Sinister Six film, especially if they're going to go with the more bumbling aspects of the Sinister Six, and that's a big question mark here. Are they going to go with the way the Sinister Six is depicted in the comics, a very ragtag group of characters? There's also the Superior Foes of Spider-Man comic right now, which doesn't even have any A-list villains in it. It's all like C-listers. But it's pretty interesting, and you might think there's some synergy there already. They knew this was coming down the pike, and so they did this. They did the comic to get ready for this movie. And also, the other interesting thing is that Drew Goddard has currently been hired by Marvel to head up their Daredevil television show on Netflix. How can he do both? That's crazy. And also, Daredevil, I guess Daredevil and Venom might have kind of similar aspects, the street heroes. And this also, makes people, I would be interested to know, what what version of Venom are they using? Is it the symbiote it's bothering Spider-Man? My guess is no. They're either going to go with the Eddie Brock storyline, or they could fast forward where today Venom is kind of like an anti-hero in the comics, because Flash Thompson, who lost both of his legs as in the army, is a soldier, he goes into a special project with the military where he has the symbiote intentionally bonded to him, controls it, and it creates kind of like this tech suit he's wearing that can give him legs and weapons, and it's struggling. Can he control the bad to do good? Which seems very Hollywood to me. So I think that there's a very good chance they could have gravitated towards that, especially since Raimi already tackled Venom to pretty poor results. I think we can all agree with Topher Grace playing the role in the third Spider-Man. Who can forget that scene where all his teeth were kind of knocked out and he looked so ridiculous? Venom is supposed to be super scary, not elicit laughs from the audience or groans. So that's your Spider-Man universe coming together. A lot of you, when I said that Andrew Garfield said he was not signed for a fourth film and maybe didn't know if he'd want to continue doing that, a number of you immediately said, fine, see you, Garfield, bring in Miles Morales. I think that would be fascinating. I myself had agreed with you that Jaden Smith at a certain time would have been a great Miles Morales. I think after Earth, I would look for a new talent for that role, but I think it would be great to bring Miles Morales into here, and you might not even need to get rid of Garfield, although clearly they're going to be diluting the importance of him to the Spideyverse if they can get some new stars in these other films. You can also maybe see why Jamie Foxx was keen to play Electro if he's going to get spun off into his own Sinister Six film. But then again, it's all like, what version of the Sinister Six are we dealing with? But why not throw Miles Morales in there? Why not give him a film as well? I think that would be fascinating. Or you could do what the Ultimate Comics did, and everyone suggested is, tragically Peter Parker is killed in the, on duty because being a superhero is a dangerous gig, and then Miles Morales takes over. I thought the transition worked really well. It gave some gravitas, even more so, to the Spider-Man mythos, that this was a dangerous job, and that, the mask meant more than the person underneath it. Of course, the person underneath it is important, but the mask is what's really, that's the legacy. And I think that the Miles Morales comic continues to be very good, even though right now the main characters seem to be Cloak and Dagger. Whatever, Bendis, just as long as you bring Miles and swing him over to the 616. But I would love to see him here too, and I think that if they're going to build a whole slew of movies, they can have their cake and eat it too, and that make Miles, before anybody gets upset about that, make Miles more appealing to Sony, because they don't have to have too big of a risk to bring him into the films. So I think it would be great. I just read the latest issue of, it's a Cataclysm subtitle right now of Ultimate Spider-Man, and they had a great last page where Miles Morales takes off his mask, and I'm not going to say what the circumstances are, and it looked really cool, and it just showed how far it's come, especially since they've aged Miles up, that he's now like a full-blown teenager. It's very exciting, and I think they could be surprised how well a Miles Morales movie could do. All right, second story of the day. Don Cheadle's going around telling everybody that, don't worry, War Machine is going to be in the Avengers 2, and it's pretty much been confirmed to some degree by Marvel, so this is a legit story. Now the question is, why is War Machine in Avengers 2? And how big of a role will he have? Let's not forget that he kind of had a very small role in Iron Man 3. And also, if they're bringing Falcon into, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, I think the obvious, because he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative, you would think that you would be seeing him in Avengers 2. Maybe you'll be seeing both. The other thing that gives me some concern, though, is that because they aren't making any more Iron Man movies, Robert Downey Jr. hasn't really signed on for any more of those. He just instead said he would switch over to the Avengers movies. He's like, hey, I'm not going back to the small leagues. I want the Avengers. So he has signed on for 2 and 3. So perhaps there might be contractual obligations here to Marvel that they have to put Don Cheadle in some more movies, but there are no more Iron Man movies to put him in. So it'll be interesting. Do we want 2 Iron Mans, basically, in Avengers 2? People already feel that he takes over these movies anyway. But I think, Don Cheadle, likable in the role. I think Terrence Howard has kind of reminded people lately with all that talk when he was promoting The Best Man Holiday about what could have been. That puts a little bit of a sad note on it for me. But I think Don Cheadle, they haven't really made him a hero as War Machine. He more just kind of comes in and is like, Tony Stark, you're so crazy. I mean, I liked the scene when he had to close down the party in Iron Man 2 and deal with the drunk Tony Stark. I thought that worked out pretty well. I liked that a lot and took the suit. That was my favorite Don Cheadle as Rhodey scenes. And also the fight at the end was pretty good on that one. I liked the Iron Man 2, but he really literally had nothing to do in Iron Man 3. It was, he was just there. So I don't know how I feel about him being in there. And also, this might start to make the Avengers 2, and if Tony creates Ultron, is that really just Iron Man 4? And they just bring everybody into it and call it the Avengers. So, something to think about. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story, yes, I want to talk about this. A lot of people yesterday were really upset that The Butler, and particularly, even more so, Fruitvale Station were snubbed by the Golden Globes. Now, let's address this. Now, I've been telling you for months that Hollywood, unfortunately, when it comes to movies that are largely of an African-American cast, or a black cast, because, a lot of these, Idris Elba, for instance, from the UK, they only really, they pick films and categories. It's unfortunate. It's a sad truth of the industry. Now, they're making more and more, quote unquote, black films. More people are going to see them. More white audiences are going to see them. You're getting a more diverse group. That's great. Maybe, and as you can see, you have both Idris Elba and Chiwetel Ejiofor in the Best Actor category for the Golden Globes. That's great. Perhaps Idris Elba took Forrest Whitaker's spot from The Butler because of all the Mandela stuff in the news lately for his passing away. We don't totally know what happened behind the scenes. But anyway, they only can pick so many films. And now, as for The Butler, don't get too worried about it, because in the SAG nominations the day before, that Butler did quite well, as did 12 Years a Slave. The Butler was, along with 12 Years a Slave, but The Butler got the SAG equivalent to the Best Picture nomination, Best Actor for Forrest Whitaker nomination, and Best Supporting for Oprah Winfrey. So, and because actors make up the biggest voting block in the Academy, expect to see The Butler, and also Harvey Weinstein. Don't underestimate Harvey Weinstein. Expect to see The Butler pop up again for the Oscars, even though it was snubbed here. But for Fruitvale Station, there just isn't room for it, because they want to hit different kinds of movies, and so they don't want to nominate all similar films. And sadly, Hollywood, I know these are different kinds of movies to some degree. I think Mandela is a little bit different. I feel that 12 Years a Slave, The Butler, and Fruitvale Station all kind of address a similar topic. But, but 42 could have come in here, though, but I just don't think, the other thing is I don't think the studio behind 42 really ran an ad campaign for it, and if the studio doesn't run an ad campaign, no one's going to bother to remember it. That's another sad fact of the awards season. The only films that are nominated are the ones that ask to be nominated. They don't go and sit there and pour, they should, but they don't go and pour over all the movies of the year and say, what do you think we should nominate? They go to events, they go to screenings. It's a tremendous amount of money are spent by the studios to host talks with the actors and the director, and really kind of just say how great and how important they think the film is, and they hope you agree, and that's how these things get nominated. Fruitvale Station, don't worry about it. Michael B. Jordan will continue to work for sure. So will the director there. He did a fantastic job. Ryan Coogler. Don't worry about these people. But as far as getting to this stage of award season, it's just not going to happen. They did get some nominations for Best New Film, Best Newcomers at the smaller awards shows. I think look for them for the Spirit Awards. I believe those nominations are out. But they're just not a big enough film to compete with, especially now that studios are getting into the Oscar races. Small little independent films just can't quite compete anymore. So I'm sorry that many of you are disappointed. It's a really, it's horrible to tear back the curtain and see the politics of the awards races, and that there still are, race lines to some degree in the Academy and these voting blocks. So we'll see. But expect to see both 12 Years and The Butler competing at the Oscars. Expect that. Don't get too worried about The Butler just yet. But Fruitvale Station, not a competitor, I'm afraid. But maybe in the future, we'll see Jordan and Coogler up there with nominations. All right, they're definitely talents to watch. All right, so today's question. Joseph Chad says, regular viewer, hi Grace. Loving the show as usual. Thank you, Joseph. You give such great knowledge on the workings of Hollywood and the film industry. So my question is, well, thank you, Joseph. I really appreciate that. I liked this question. This is why I picked it, because I had an answer I think that most people would not expect. It says, when a person is starting their movie career, what are the first steps they should take? I'm glad you brought this up, Joseph, because I've been having this conversation with a friend of mine lately. She wants to be a writer, and she's thinking of moving out to Los Angeles to do it. But at the same time, she said she would be interested in maybe working in development, or maybe even starting maybe her own shingle, which is like a production shingle, which starts shows, or maybe even being an agent. She said she had a couple of different interests there, and I think that's the key to a successful career in Hollywood. Deciding you want to work in the movie business, but then being open to where you might best fit in, because that might not be always where you expected it to be. Now, of course, there are like the diehard artists, who are like, I want to be a director no matter what. I want to be a writer no matter what. I want to be an actor no matter what. Some of the more, prominent jobs, you could say. And I say prominent because I think that's changing. I mean, I think like, a long time ago, maybe even 10 years ago, you wouldn't really know the names of the studio executives making these decisions. But today, a lot of the film fans, maybe not so much the mainstream public, but we might be getting there, are aware who Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Sugihara, Kevin Feige. We have all these names, Thomas Tull, head of Legendary Pictures, Bob Iger, who runs Disney. You begin to know who these players are, and I think that's really important. And I think because it means that, more careers, everybody, all these people contribute to making movies, and they all deserve to be recognized. Look, we just talked about a bunch of writers today, and so that's great. Because when you focus too much on a single job in Hollywood, the odds increase dramatically that you won't get it, and therefore you'll have to maybe go home, or you'll always be on the fringe. And I think your goal should be to see as far as you can get in whatever career path maybe is the best fit. And sometimes that's decided, by luck, being a certain place at the right time, and also maybe a talent that you didn't know you had, but exists. So I would say, just the most important decision is I want to be involved in making movies. And then start to look into where there are jobs that are available, where you might have connections, where it's kind of school you can get into. Because, it's all, it's largely about who you know, where you are. And, I think that hard work, rolling up your sleeves, and persistence do work. But one of my favorite quotes, one of the only good things to come out of the movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, is, there's a great quote from Clooney saying, most of your life you feel like a salmon swimming upstream, but when you find the right path in life, all of your obstacles will almost miraculously melt away. And I think that's very true. So if you find yourself fighting and fighting and fighting and not making any progress, well, then maybe you're on the wrong path. Maybe you're in the wrong stream. I'm not saying you have to go to a whole other continent, but maybe move a few streams over and try something else and see if you move forward a little bit better there. You'll be surprised, I think. And I think in the long run, you'll be happier to have a career where you are a part of the industry that you love, and you're effective. You're effectively contributing to it. So thank you for your question, Joseph. I hope you like the answer, or hope at least it's helpful to you or gives you something to think about. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Write down below what you think of today's 3 stories, the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.